Hi. We need to configure some parameters to execute the CORTEX deploy. First, the source project, where data is replicated and CDC processing takes place. Then, the target project, where the data facing the end user will be. We can use the same project for source and destination. The raw dataset is where the SAP data will be replicated and updated. The CDC dataset is where the latest version of records will always be available. If the data update is performed by the replication tool, the raw and CDC datasets will be the same. These two datasets need to exist before deployment. The reporting dataset is where data is made available to end users for reporting. ML dataset is the dataset that prepares the results of machine learning algorithms or BQML models. These two datasets, reporting and models, if they don't exist, will be created automatically. The two buckets, for log and for DAGs, must be previously created. Deploy CDC defines how data will be processed upon deployment. If true, by the CORTEX; if false, by the replication tool, in which case the raw and CDC datasets will be the same. Deploy test data. If set to true, the deployment will load sample data. If set to false, the SAP tables must have been previously loaded. Generate external data. Some datasets have external dependencies that need to be configured before running this process. For example, weather, calendar of holidays, trends, among others. We have some optional parameters that, depending on your deployment, need to be configured. Location refers to the location of the dataset in GCS buckets. If necessary, consult the documentation to correctly define your location. The default value is US. Mandant refers to the SAP client or client. If using test data, the default value will be 100. And finally, SQL flavor refers to the version of SAP, ECC or S/4. If you are using CORTEX version 4.0, you will need to edit two configuration files before running. In the Cloud Shell editor, open the CORTEX Data Foundation directory. Click on the config folder and select the config.json file. On line 7 in turbo mode, let's change the true value to false. Then, on line 11 in languages, notice that we can inform more than one language simultaneously if necessary, just separating the values by a comma and between double quotes. And just below, on line 12, we have the currency configuration in the currencies parameter, where it is also possible to inform more than one option if necessary, according to your needs. See an example of how to proceed. For our project, we will keep only the default USD value. In the top menu, click on File and then select Save to save the changes made. Close the file and then click on the SRC folder. SAP CDC. Find the cloud build cdc.yaml file. Go down to line 137. Let's comment out the code up to line 158. To comment the line, just position the cursor at the beginning and press the Shift+3 keys. In later versions this problem will be resolved and it will no longer be necessary to perform this procedure. In the top menu, click File and then Save. Now, let's assemble the command to execute the deploy. For our example, we will use the same project for source and destination parameters. We will also use the same dataset for raw and CDC as the data will be processed by the replication tool, CORTEX. The reporting and models datasets will be created automatically during deployment with the names defined in the two parameters. We will define the same bucket for logs and DAGs. We will inform false for the test data parameter, because as we saw earlier, the tables have already been replicated from SAP. The value informed for deploy CDC will be false, as the data will be processed by CORTEX. External DAGs will be set to true. The mandant, for our example, as configured in replication, is 800. In this parameter you must inform your SAP client. In location we will keep the default value US. Consult the documentation to correctly report your location. And the last parameter, SQL flavor, refers to your SAP, ECC or S4 version. With all the parameters defined, we can execute the deploy. Let's copy the entire command and open the Cloud Shell terminal. Go to the CORTEX Data Foundation directory. Paste the deploy command and press Enter to execute. During the execution of the deploy, we can follow the progress through Cloud Build. After completing the deployment process, BigQuery can see the creation of the ML models and reporting datasets as defined in the parameters. And we can check in SAP reporting the views that were created and that are available to users for creating reports. Thanks for your attention.